Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. We're big, we're bad, we're back for another Fact Friday. Hello, we're big, we're bad, we're back with another Fact Friday. That's frequently asked questions. There's some great ones. As ever, please hit the like button down there so to say that you liked it. Subscribe, hit that subscribe button. There's also a bell, apparently, which you have to hit because then it actually notifies you that we have a video. And if you haven't already, you can go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list and get a whole bunch of free goodies. And you can try out the 14-day free trial or just join the Academy where we have over 1,200 wonderful people that all help each other out. Anyway, let's get started. What do you do when you're recording a vocal that has a large dynamic range between the verse and a chorus, and the singer wants to record it in one take? I make sure the vocal isn't too hot in the chorus, but then the verse is being recorded at a much lower level. Could this cause some problems? What a wonderful question. Now, Eric is going to pick up the camera. This is our main vocal mic pre that we're using. It's either this or the 1173. But this 1028, the BAE 1028, is a, I'm going to say it, a Neve style mic pre. As you can see on vocals, I don't ever engage the EQ, believe it or not. You can, especially if you've got a lot of air conditioning, you might want to engage the EQ, and then, as you can see here, probably just about, it's set to 70. And that would be because there's a lot of hum and background noise. I would high pass. But generally speaking, I don't do any EQ on a vocal on the way in. I let the mixing take care of that. This is our input sensitivity. This is our gain control. Now, this is a wonderful question you just asked. Now, this might be, for instance, my verse setting, say, up to maybe even 40 dB here. So now what happens is this is my verse, the chorus comes in and I click back 2. It's basically that. What I do is I just change the gain setting depending on where the singer is singing. We do all kinds of stuff. So basically here's the chorus, then click, click, there goes the verse. And it's not that difficult. It can be like da 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 da. I don't know. Suddenly he or she's singing quieter. So that's the input sensitivity. This is the output gain. So if you're going into a compressor, you might want to adjust this. I personally like to just overload it. So you see, it's set to about half. If it was full out, it would be super clean. Here, set to half, I'm pushing it just a little bit into the output stage. That's just me. You can do it any way you like, but basically that is how I combat what you are talking about. What I do is I adjust the input gain for different sections. And another thing I do, this is a lyric sheet. And you can see it's pretty comprehensively marked off. So what I do is I'll take a verse here and I will just mark off takes that I like. I will even ring letters or words. And I will mark down, if necessary, gain settings. I will write down where it is. So while the vocal's going down, I've got my lyric sheet and I am boosting or cutting the input sensitivity. And if there's a word that the guy or girl's coming up to and he or she wails this word, I know, reading my lyric sheet, boom, when to cut it, when to boost it. There is nothing better than getting your mic preamp. If you have an external mic preamp, if you don't, it's understandable. But if you have a mic preamp like this, could be this one, could be the 1173, it could be a 312 style, it could be all kinds of one. Even on your front of your audience, the input sensitivity there, mark it off, mark off different settings and just sit there. Here we have our ID 14. What we would do on this situation is put a little bit of tape on it here and we would mark it. Say for instance there was a mark here for the chorus and then one for the verse. Just literally adjust it like this. There's no substitute for doing a little bit of extra work. Honestly, if you do a little bit of extra work, you'll get wonderful result and you'll be really, really happy because you're just on the verge of just before distortion on the mic pre, just keeping it a little bit under. You're going to get a fullness of sound. I particularly like the audience, as I'm sure you're aware, Obviously, I love the BAE. I use them on everything. I mean, I like the sound of Neve-style preamps, but I also have Spectrasonics I love. I also have APIs. There's a lot of different things out there. But one of the things I love about analog, if you do have the analog mic pre's, is just drive them a little harder and then ducking them down when they get louder. This is a skill that I highly suggest that you get into doing, and you will get the best vocal sounds. And if there's one thing that people always compliment me on, it is the vocal sounds. And I believe that's a forte that I love and I really want to explore and help you get better at. Marvelous question. Are you ever 100% happy with a mix? Or do you settle with something a bit less? Do you ever finish a mix and feel happy about it? Don't listen to it for a few days or even a week, and then come back to it and all of a sudden hear a bunch of things you want to change. I'll tell you the most common thing that happens to me is actually the reverse of this sort of last situation. What happens to me often is when I'm agonizing over a mix. Maybe I'm 2 or 3 days into it, I'm working on other songs, I keep coming back to it, I'm getting super frustrated, and I think I've got it, but I'm not really happy with it, but I let it go. And then it's months later. And this is a good lesson for us. I think this is the biggest lesson from this question, is it's months and months later, sometimes years later. And the song comes on the radio, it comes up on my iTunes, it's in a TV, whatever. I hear a song I've worked on. And for the life of me, I remember that I had an issue with it, but I can't figure out what the problem was. So I might be there going, I hate the snare. This recently happened to me with a song called Love 3 Times. It's Love, L-U-V, XXX. And it's the first song on Aerosmith's last record. And I recorded and I mixed it here on this console in a hybrid fashion. And I could not get happy with the drum sound. I just couldn't. Everything I tried, I felt like I was going live snare, wanted to put a bit of sample in, the sample suddenly overtook the live snare, then I was pushing the sample up, and the point was I could never get, in my mind, I could never get that balance right. So I favored the live snare and had a little bit of a sample underneath, just a bit. But it always bothered me that there was a little bit of a sample in there. It just did, and I didn't ever like that drum sound. And then I heard it the other day, and I loved it. I was blessed to mix 5 songs on their record. Neil Avron mixed 5 while we were finishing the record, and Christophe Algi mixed the 3 songs that a different producer worked on, even though I was the engineer on those. And I go back and listen now, and I'm like, I love my snare sound. It sounds as good as the other guys. What was I worrying about? I was under this massive pressure because I'm making a record where I'm the engineer on it, but I'm also mixing a bunch of the songs alongside Neil Avron and Christophe Algi. There's a lot of pressure when you've got 2 guys of that stature also mixing the record. So my point is I came back to it and I loved it. And I really enjoyed it. And to be honest, for a second, I couldn't remember what was bothering me about it. And then I eventually remembered. So the biggest thing for me is time is a great healer, yes, but it also gives you perspective. As I've said many, many times, Jim Scott said to me, the loudest thing in the mix is the last thing you worked on. Now, that's kind of a joke, very true, but the point is like he's pinpointing on you obsess about the last thing that you're dealing with. It's, you take that away, you can't forget it, whether it be the vocal or the kick drum sound or whatever, you will obsess about it. That's just the nature of a job. You're a creative, we're creatives. This is part of what we do. We're not like, I know there's a lot of YouTube channels with guys like, and you're just boosty and you do this. It isn't like that for actual people that work in this business. It's not like a YouTube video where it's all perfectly orchestrated and like, what I like to do is boost 60 hertz and cut 250. It's not like that in the real world. You're sitting there and you're battling with things and you're trying out ideas and you're getting creative. And that's how music is amazing. It's okay if you're breaking a sweat and you're not sleeping. You give a schnizzle. You care. You're putting time and effort into it. So the point is, when you ask me this, I love this question. But what it's saying to me is like, you're getting emotionally attached. And that is okay. And that is amazing. That's what it's all about. This is all about breaking down some barriers and showing what it's really like. What it is really like is a lot of work. How many songs have we worked on today? 3, 4, 5, 6?
7 or 8? Maybe?
7 or 8 songs today. Recalling mixes, working on stuff. We've shot some video stuff. This is what we do every day. This is the real world. I'm not a professional YouTuber sitting here like creating like, really great content, and how to mix a kick drum. This is the real world. So if you're agonizing and you're getting a little frustrated and as you put it, and you're never happy with the mix, that's okay. That is okay. That is the real world. That is everybody I've ever respected. Some of those guys we just mentioned, some of the biggest guys in the world are always like striving, trying to improve, trying to get better. They don't believe that they're the best. They're not telling anybody that they're doing it wrong. They're out there trying to learn and get better. So always be learning. Don't worry if you're never happy with it. I can think of 1,000 people that I admire that were never, ever happy with anything they ever did. There's a great Chet Atkins quote where he was asked what he attributed his success to. And he said, it's because he has never been happy with anything he'd ever recorded. Anyway, I'll leave you with that one. That was a marvelous question. Please leave some more questions below for next week's Fact Friday and future ones. Of course, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And let's get on with the next question. Can you please talk about your backup procedure? How do you protect against data or data loss? I use Synchronizer Pro X by a company called Qdea, and I've been using it for 15 years. What it does is I use it to synchronize drives. We have 2 drives at all times which are identical. So we work on one drive and then we mirror it with another drive. If Eric takes this drive away and goes to another room, does an edit, or I do a guitar overdub, or we go to a different studio and do drums over here or vocals there. We take these 2 drives, we bring them back together, and then we synchronize them. And they become a mirror of each other. So whatever he's recorded, or Jeff's recorded, or Matt, or whoever it might be, whatever they've recorded then gets dumped back onto the drive and vice versa. At all times, those drives are mirrored. That is the number one way that I back up. Then, at the end of a project, I would always create a mix drive, which is where I would take the final tracks that we used in the song and put them and them only onto a mix drive. That traditionally, when we had massive budgets, would go to Michael Brower and guys like that, Mark Endert, and they would mix the records off of the mix drive. Those files would exist in 3 places then. The final mix drive would have all of the files that were chosen for the song, and then the other 2 drives, creating 3 drives total, but the other 2 drives would have all of the playlists, all of the B-sides, all of the other stuff. So basically, the actual album itself was in 3 places. Now, there are cloud backup systems. Those are fantastic. If you want to use them, that is great. I would highly suggest that you back it up to hard drives as well as the cloud. Honestly, you can't have too many backups. If you've got it backed up 50 times, that's probably just about enough. Hard drives don't usually last more than a handful of years, and who knows what's going to happen with a cloud backup system in the future. None of us know. So back it up as often as you can and in as many places as you can. Synchronizer Pro X, that's the software I use. Hey Warren, would you or someone else be so kind and tell me what guitar you are using in this video? I asked Eric which video that came from, and it apparently came from last week's Fact Friday. So I'm going to grab the guitar and I'll tell you about it one more time. And just so you know, we're going to do a feature on one of these guitars because the guy that builds this, Mr. Scott Baxendale, you can tell I'm a huge fan because I mentioned this guitar like 5 times, has taken my beaten up, destroyed by Delta Airlines Harmony and is rebuilding it for me. It is a gorgeous guitar. Oh. This is through the lapel mic, the lavalier. Intonates so well. It's such a beautiful guitar. So what he does is he takes old 40s, 50s, 60s guitars, he takes off the top, puts brand new struts in it, new bridge, machine heads, tuning pegs, straightens the neck, sands them down flat, refrets them, and you end up with this. Sounds absolutely gorgeous, but every single one of these guitars is completely individual. That's what I love about it. It's because each one of these is completely rebuilt and it's just your guitar. It's absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, Scott Baxendale, the actual company is called Harmony Conversion. I think his Instagram is Harmony and K Conversion. He's building guitars for everybody, you name it. Guys from Wilco, all kinds of players are getting this. And rock guys as well. It's not all just indie guys, it's every guy. It's roots guys, country girls, country everything. You name it. They're just beautiful guitars. The Irish band that we've been working with making the record, Max, the guitar player, is an amazing guitar player and he loves this guitar. Anyway, there you go. Shout out to Scott Baxendale. Any advice for producers or artists trying to get a career going while working a day job? I've almost entirely only ever worked in music my whole life. However, even though it's all I really know how to do, I play instruments, I run DAWs and tape machines and write songs and all that kind of stuff. It's the only thing I'm any good at. It's all I really know. However, I have done jobs in between, jobs to support myself. The biggest one I can remember is doing roofing. And you know those big public storage buildings they have in Southern California? They're these huge flat roofed buildings. I worked with this guy who was a drummer, and I put huge alloy sheets down on the roofs in the summer. Like, zoop, zoop, put it down. And I would have to get up. We'd have to be at the job site sometimes like 7 or 8 in the morning. And they were an hour and a half, 2-hour drive away quite often. And so he'd pick me up 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'd drive there. We put on these huge alloy sheets in the middle of the summer, like 100-degree weather, putting alloy sheets down so it's like reflecting back at you. I mean, I got fried. I got absolutely fried. I actually cut my hand quite badly, my left hand, which was not good, from a sheet of alloy. And then I came home and I was absolutely exhausted because I was gone for 12 hours, even though it was only like an 8-hour work day. There was the travel time, going early in the morning and then coming back in rush hour traffic. It was pretty horrific. And the money was less than awful. It was pretty bad, but it was what I could get at that time. And I needed money fast. I needed to pay my rent. But I was in the music industry. I was a musician. I'd actually just got off tour after being on the road for 3 months. But I came back after 3 months and there was no gigs. There was like a $100 gig here, a $100 gig there. But this is like 15, 20 years ago. And so 20 years ago, I was like hustling to make money. So I know what it's like to do a crappy job and also play music. And I did that for a long time. I did that for a full summer and I was exhausted every single day. And all I can tell you is I just made it work. I just came back, I played guitar, I wrote songs. I had my ADATs and my Soundtracks Topaz console, you remember that in the 90s? And I recorded songs and it was exhausting. It was really, really exhausting. But if I wasn't doing something creative, I would never have been able to get up every morning and do that. So for me, it's like having the day job and doing something that pays the bills. It's a means to an end. You're doing it to pay the bills, to give yourself the freedom to do music. As long as you're not like out there wasting the money on something else, you can maybe save up a month or two's money to just concentrate on doing music. So for me, it was always like, how can I make enough money to pay my bills so I can do music? And luckily, it was only a 3 or 4 month stint in the summer, but that's what I did. And it was a lot of physical work and very exhausting, mixed in with doing music. But I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad that, that even cutting my hand, I'm glad I didn't do any major damage. It bled a lot, don't get me wrong, but I'm glad that I had that experience because you know what it did? It made me focus more on music. It also made me focus on doing this as a business. This is a big thing. It's okay being a really good musician. That's great, but you need people skills. You need to be able to communicate. I've said this 1,000 times and I'll say it again. There is 100 people for every single job, especially in entertainment, probably 1,000 people for every single job that can do the job. There's loads of guys that can play guitar like me. Loads of them. If I got a gig, it's because people wanted to work with me. They wanted to actually work with me, the person. So that's something I had to improve myself, and it's part of the process. It's a big business decision that you have to make. Do you want to work? Then be somebody that people want to work with. Be a worker amongst workers. Because no matter how much I do this, there's always somebody better. There's always somebody coming up who's younger and hotter and cooler and hipper. That's just the way it's going to be. You might be 19 years old and young and hip, but there's probably an 18-year-old that is younger and hipper. The point is you can always look around you and see somebody you're competing with, or you can just get better at your job, learn every technique you can, and enjoy this process. This is a beautiful journey. I did my first recording, mix and master. Anywhere I can post it to get some feedback on how to improve. If you're a member of Produce Like a Pro Academy, you can post in the forum there. You can post on the Academy page, which is a private members page. And basically, people will interact with you and help you out. It's insane community. We do also have a Facebook page, which is a lot more general, which is Produced Like a Pro Students page that has a lot of activity as well. You could post it on there. I mean, ultimately, you need to get yourself a community of people that you trust that will help you. You can just generically post your music in different forums. I've seen it happen. You just got to be aware if you post it in a lot of these different forums, you may get some negative feedback. That's just the way a lot of people operate. We don't encourage it, and we don't actually have any of it. And the 1 or 2 instances over the last 2 or 3 years, literally 1 or 2 people that have done that, we just kick them out. There's absolutely no reason for that. It's all about being massively supportive of each other. But, you may get lucky. You may just post it in a forum and have some great response. And there are good people out there. And a lot of our Academy members are also in lots of other forums as well. So there is a lot of good people out there. So let's not sell it short. Thank you, everybody. That was so wonderful. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Don't forget to check out Produce Like a Pro. If you want to check out the Academy, you can. It's a wonderful place. Incredibly supportive community. Thank you for all of your marvelous questions. Please leave some more down below. For instance, what has been your experience going back and listening to mixes? Have you gone back and listened to a mix and just been mind-blowing? Have you gone back and listened to a mix and had your mind blown and forgotten why you hated it or why you loved it or what was wrong with it or what was right with it and just heard it like for the first time? That's a wonderful experience. What is your workarounds when you're working with singers? Leave us a bunch of comments and questions below. Always love interacting with you. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing, and I'll see you all again very soon.